I'm going to continue reading Tucky, Joe, and Little Heart. I'll start from the beginning for those of you that missed the beginning of the book. Patricia Polacco had said, a few years ago I was on the road to doing school visits and staying at a hotel in Virginia. One evening as I walked down the hall to my room, past a banquet room with a military banner over the entrance, inside a reunion of World War II veterans was being celebrated. I leaned into the room and was struck by the sight of very old soldiers standing in groups exchanging stories of their tours of service in the Pacific. I stepped inside and soon was invited to join them. I was deeply moved by both their stories of bravery and heroism and by their love for one another. I was also impressed by their compassion for the people whose villages they had liberated during the war. As I returned to my room that evening, I started thinking about some of the veterans in my own village and how compelling their stories must be. The following account is the story that Johnny Wallen related to me shortly before his death at the age of 85 in January of 2010. I will try to tell it as nearly as I can in his own words. I was born in Allen, Kentucky on October 3rd, 1924. I grew up like any backcountry boy in Kentucky, tougher than last year's jerky and faster than a scared jackrabbit. I could whittle and carve just about any kind of stick or wood I could sneak up on just about anything. Came right handy for hunting. My pa taught me how to use a shotgun when I was knee-high to a grasshopper. By my 12th birthday, I was known in 3 countries for sharpshooting. I could hit the eye out of a gnat from a furlong away whilst I was dead run dogging a wild boar hog. I always took first prize over the county fair for fancy shooting. I even caught the eye of the sweetest old little girl in town, Freda Hall, from over Prestonburg way. I knew when I was old enough I was going to spark her. Here's our next page. When I was 10 or so, I heard all about the war that broke out in Europe and that feller Hitler. When the paper said Pearl Harbor was bombed and we were at war with Japan in the Pacific, I told my ma that I was fixing to enlist in the army and go right and fight for my country. The onlyest thing was I wasn't old enough to join up. Even though I had promised my heart to Freda, I had to go. So soon enough, my folks lied me older when I went to sign up. Sure enough, the Army took me that very day. After my basic training, I was assigned to the 6th Infantry Company G, 12th Division. Then we were deployed to the Pacific Theater on the biggest ship I ever saw. It was miserable sick the whole way. The onlyest boat I'd ever seen was a river raft back in Hominy Creek. Being the youngest recruit on that there ship, almost everyone aboard was calling me that kid from Kentucky or just the kid. At first, I didn't like them saying that, but after I got to showing them how good I was with a rifle and with the sergeant picked me for special training as a marksman and for heavy ordnance explosives, they all looked up to me. I later became part of a very special unit that went into the jungle to seek and destroy machine gun nests and empty outposts. Then the Kentucky Kid moniker became a badge of honor. I could hardly wait to land and get to the thick of fighting. Almost as soon as we landed, we were thrown into the worst of the conflict. I had never seen so much killing and suffering. Our division was sent to so many places to fight that everything started blurring together. My outfit was known as the Sightseeing Six because we held the record for the most consecutive days of continuous battle. We fought tooth and nail, cheek to jaw, We were in Milne Bay, when Maffin Bay, and then Lone Tree Hill, then New Guinea, Munoz, and finally we were on our way to Luzon, Luzon in the Philippines. We had been battling for 219 days straight. By the time we got to Luzon, I was tired, blind tired, so tuckered I could finally put one foot, I could hardly put one foot in front of the other. I was plumb weary of the jungle. It was hot, steamy, sticking, and thick, and the bugs. I never seen so many bugs. There were snakes, lizards, big spiders too. It rained every day. The ground was always damp and mushy. Our feet never got dry. To think that I wanted all this fighting. Now I knew there ain't no glory in war, but I was in the army and it was up to me to take a stand and fight for my country. But the but at night I'd have dreams about my ma and her bacon powder biscuits. I could even smell the pine boards in our house. I could see the green grass at our holler. Oh, how I wanted to be back home with my ma and my kin. Looking rough. Good gracious. Go away. My unit's mission on Luzon was to clear the jungle and build an airstrip, and also to level the land for Bukabak and pitch our tents for outpost. So just about every day I was swinging a machete at thick underbrush and slashing vines. One day I stopped for a swig of water from my canteen. The bugs were swarming all around me. Some of them were as big as my hand. All of them were stinging me. I was being eaten alive. I was a scratching fool. I had welts all over every inch of my skin. Some of them burned and hurt like bites from anthills back home. Then I heard rushing water. I pulled back the underbrush and saw a small village, native village, just yonder from me at the bend in the river. I saw village women standing knee deep in the river trying to catch fish with their bare hands. Then, sudden like, I could feel somebody behind me. I turned really fast and drew up my rifle. Standing there like something out of a dream was a scrawny little old girl. She wasn't any bigger than a minute and looked weak as a fawn deer. I dropped to my knees and drank her in. Somehow, looking at that innocent tiny girl gave me a peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. She reached out and touched one of the swollen bed bites on my arm. Then she bent down and plucked a plum leaf from a ground-hugging plant. She broke it in half and squeezed the goo that was oozing out on it onto the bite. It was instant, blessed relief. So's both of us picked them leaves and put the medicine that came on them on all of my bites. Thank you, little angel, I whispered. She just blinked at me, didn't smile, didn't say nothing. Just looked at me with those beautiful, haunted eyes. My name is Kentucky Joe, I said as I pointed to myself. She cocked her head to one side. Kentucky Johnny, I said louder. She just stared. I got something you'd like, I said as I pulled a chocolate block from my K rations. I held it out to her. I knew she wanted it real bad, but she held back till I put it in her tiny hand. Then she stuffed the whole block in her mouth. I thought she'd choke on it. She'd chewed hungrily at it, barely taking breaths to swallow. Then both of us just sat there for the longest time. It made me feel calm and less homesick to be there with her. Wonder what your name is, I muttered. Then I noticed a small birthmark on her arm. It was shaped like a perfect small heart. Little heart, I sang out. That's what I'm calling you. I whispered to her. Tucky Joe, she suddenly blurted out as she pointed at me. Tucky Joe, Tucky Joe, Tucky Joe, she sang as she turned and ran back into the jungle. I gathered up as many of them leaves as I could take with me back to camp. And here he is whittling. Read about the whittling. When I got back and showed the medics them leaves and how they made the bites better, pretty soon them leaves were being used for to heal any kind of skin scrape. I figured it wasn't a good idea to tell anyone about Little Heart, being that sometimes natives were scouts and spies for the enemy. I guess I was afeared that our captain might think that, so I kept Little Heart as my own secret. I spent most of that night whittling a hinged dancing doll for that little girl. I made 'em lots back home for my kin. We called them jiggy dolls. Each arm and leg were wired at the elbow and knee so that when you shook the arms and the legs waved, they were dancing. Then I put the body and head on a stick. I couldn't wait to see little Joe's little heart, to see her, to, to show her what I had made, could make it dance. The very next day, I made it my business to be at that same place where I first saw her. I waited, and sure enough, she finally came. I pulled the jigger dancer from my pack and attached the stick and thumped it with my fingers. Sure enough, that little doll started dancing. Little Heart couldn't take her eyes off of it. Then she smiled, a smile so sweet and full of life that both of us clean forgot that a war was raging all around this island. After that, almost every single day, I'd meet up with Little Heart so I could share my K rations with her. After a time, I'd take along some extra food and she'd take it back to her people. And I'm going to stop there because, Christian, I think you're probably going to be the only one watching this. And that's overlapped slightly into where we started picking up today for our reading. So if you need me to go further, please reach out to me.